74,000 years ago, something happened that nearly wiped humanity off the map. Not a war, not a disease. A single event that, according to some scientists, shrank the entire human population down to as few as 1,000 breeding pairs. We were seconds from extinction, geologically speaking, and almost nobody talks about it. To understand how close we came to disappearing, you have to picture the world before it happened. Around 75,000 years ago, early Homo sapiens were still a fragile species. We'd only left Africa in small numbers. Groups were scattered, hunting, gathering, surviving day to day across the African continent and parts of Asia. There was no writing, no permanent settlements, just small bands of people relying on each other to make it through each season. Then, on the island of Sumatra, in modern-day Indonesia, a supervolcano called Toba erupted. And when we say erupted, we don't mean anything like the volcanoes we picture today. This was one of the largest eruptions in the last 25 million years. The Toba eruption released an estimated 2,800 cubic kilometers of ash and rock into the atmosphere, enough to bury the entire United States under a foot of debris. Ash clouds are believed to have blocked out sunlight for years. Global temperatures may have dropped by several degrees. Some researchers call this a volcanic winter. For early humans, this meant collapsing food chains. Plants struggled to grow. Animal populations that people depended on for food would have crashed. Entire regions may have become nearly unlivable for years, maybe decades. This is where a controversial but fascinating idea comes in: the Toba Catastrophe Theory. Geneticist Stanley Ambrose proposed in the 1990s that this eruption caused a massive population bottleneck, a moment where human numbers dropped so low that we came dangerously close to extinction as a species. So how do we know any of this? Scientists look at DNA. When you compare human genetic diversity to other great apes, chimpanzees, gorillas, humans show surprisingly little variation for a species so widespread. That's strange. It suggests that at some point our population dropped dramatically, and everyone alive today descended from a small surviving group. Ice cores and ash layers found across Africa and Asia line up roughly with the timing of Toba, adding physical evidence to the genetic story. Some researchers estimate the surviving population may have fallen to somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000 individuals. Others argue it was as low as a few hundred breeding pairs. If true, every single person alive today, all 8 billion of us, descended from that small surviving group of survivors. Now, not everyone agrees with this theory, and that's important to say. Some archaeologists point out that human populations in places like southern Africa and India seem to have continued relatively undisturbed right through this period. Newer genetic studies suggest the population decline may have been more gradual, spread out over tens of thousands of years, rather than one dramatic crash. So the honest answer is, we don't know for certain that Toba nearly wiped us out. What we do know is that humanity did go through a genetic bottleneck at some point in our deep past, and Toba remains one of the leading suspects. What makes this story stick with people isn't just the science, it's the idea underneath it. However close we actually came, the fact that it's even plausible says something about how fragile our existence has always been. Every conversation, every argument, every quiet moment of comfort you've ever had exists because a small group of humans, tens of thousands of years ago, found a way to keep going through something almost unimaginable. We don't know exactly how close we came, but we know we made it. And everything since, every civilization, every idea, every person you've ever loved, started with survivors.